Hi, everybody. My name is Evan Radisik. I am the Managing Director of the Cloud Software Association. Thank you for joining me again for another masterclass. And today we have Sunir from AppBind and also the CSA president doing a part two of his masterclass they did last, was it last week or the week before? I think it was last week.
In April.
Yeah. This one is really all about how to set up a partnership strategy, and the real kicker here is getting organizational alignment in 3 hours. So I know it's a fancy title, and I'm actually wondering how we're going to deliver on this 3 hour time frame to get the entire organization to align with your partnership strategy. So I can't wait to hear this. And I think everybody's tuning in on the edge of their seat to see this presentation. So I won't hold it off anymore. Sunir, I think you can share your screen. You got some slides. And yeah, if anybody's got any questions, just like awkwardly jump in. There's no way about it. Just awkwardly jump in.
I'm friendly.
Okay, go for it.
So, I mean, it's obviously you can't win partnership buy-in in 3 hours in reality because you have to do all the prep work. But the reason I started doing this, I invented this whole game of marketing risk. Those of you who read I have this Google Doc out there, sunir.org/risk. You can find it. It is a game. I came up with it because I have a background in group facilitation, but I was at FreshBooks at the time when I came up with this, and we were just in room after room, like Mike, myself, the other marketers, product, like going around in a circle, talking endlessly about first which target market to go after for FreshBooks in general, and then when I had partnerships, also there's like a million opportunities, and we couldn't settle down on it. So like one day I just got fed up, and I said, we're going to do this. We're going to get in the room together and just trust me. I will lead us through an exercise, and that's where I invented this game. It didn't come from nowhere. I do have like some professional background in facilitation, but it was extremely effective at getting everyone's thoughts out, laying it all on literally on the table, and getting alignment from all the different parties and getting agreement and having something that we can work off of in the future. And this became effectively the contract of what the strategy was for partnerships and earlier marketing for all the groups in the company that we always go back to and say, hey, remember when we had this conversation? Here's what we decided. Here's the map of the territory. And this is exactly why we're doing what we're doing. And I'll tell you, one other thing is I'm a bit of a prima donna that I don't like working in partnership roles that are just about sales, like just grinding out sales. I don't think that's a really good use of partnerships. I'll tell you what my thinking of partnerships is in a second. But I really want to think about partnerships as a critical strategy for technology companies, software in particular, because I mean, I grew up in the Microsoft channel. I know how important partnerships is to software companies. And that's really what I always come in with, that attitude that partnerships is one of the key strategies for a company. And if you're just thinking about it as a revenue generator, grinding out sales through partners, certainly I can help you with that, but it's not really the only purpose of partnerships. And this is what this exercise is, to get the whole company bought into the idea of why you are in the company and what you're supposed to be doing. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go to the desktop here. Let's try this. I don't like sharing desktops, but we'll see how this goes. So you see my screen now? All right. Well, this is how you get a hold of me in case you want me, sunir@appbind.com. Obviously, I am in the Cloud Software Association Slack. I am the president of the CSA for those watching on YouTube, but I'm also the CEO of AppBind. And just a quick hit about what I am actually up to when I'm not in the Cloud Software Association. Heaven forbid that I have my own company. What am I actually doing with AppBind? So we solved this problem. Let me even look at the right deck. This is not even the right deck. Well, that's not going to be a good right thing. That's the old deck. It's no good. Here it is. This one. So here, can you see this one? Get buy-in for your partnership strategy?
Yeah.
Okay. So just a quick reminder. So I solved this problem of actually selling through partners. I know I said that's not the only thing that matters, but it is really hard and really critical. And AppBind does solve this problem, allowing your partners to take on the risk of taking on the subscription in their client projects. And we have a full out-of-the-box reseller portal for solution partners, basically, that you can just basically launch in a day and get going and supporting your solution partner channel. So that's what I do. when I'm not doing these kind of talks. So just a reminder, what I talked about last time, I don't want to go into a full depth of this, but why are partnerships really important? I mentioned this is, I do believe partnerships are a key strategy. Well, it all comes down to this book. This is my favorite book in marketing, Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. For those who haven't read it, I recommend reading it. Those who have read it, hopefully this is not a surprise. But loosely speaking, he defines a market as a defined group of people who have common needs and wants and who refer to each other for purchasing decisions. And the referring to each other part is really important in partnership land. He doesn't mean word of mouth marketing alone. He means any place you look to for information to make a decision about how to move forward. And the thing about that is to remember and to take away as a partnership person is that customers, frankly, they don't care about you because they don't. They care about themselves, right? And they already have a business. They're already operating in the world, right? They haven't, in order to run their lives, they have constructed an ecosystem around them in order to make their lives possible, right? And so the purpose of partnerships is for some of these places that they look to for information. Yes, you can go to direct marketing or direct sales. So if they're on Facebook, you can use Facebook ads, or in Google, you can use SEO and PPC ads to reach them. But many of the places they look to for advice are not, you can't get to from the direct marketing team. They require a relationship between you and their company. So if it's another software company they're working with, you're going to need to do some kind of integration and co-marketing. If it's a service company or solution partner, you're going to have to figure out a channel program. You're going to have to build relationships. And so whenever it's relationship marketing, the partnership team, that's where you shine. That's your purpose, is whenever you have to build a relationship to get to tell your story through another company who's closer to the customer than you are. And this is why positioning is a really important part of the partnership function. And I think that the partnership leaders generally have the best understanding of positioning. Positioning is how the customers tell the story of your product in their own mind, basically. And the issue is when you're in partnerships is you're not telling that story to the customer directly. You're having the partner tell it for you. And so you actually get really good at positioning because it's kind of broken telephone. If your position is really bad, no one can tell your story for you. Plus, your partners actually they don't care about you either. They're focused on their own lives. They have their own story to the customer. They're selling their own products or services to the customer. You become really good at understanding how your story fits into their story. And with this orientation of understanding the positioning and the ecosystem of the customer, this is where the game of marketing risk came from. Because in my head, when I visualize this, I visualize it as a map. I think of the customer and everything around them and people between me and them. And that's like a spatial idea, right? There's something between me and them physically. That's how I think about it. And that immediately led me to this idea of the game Risk. Now, I don't know how many of you have played the game Risk or heard of it. It is the second most popular board game of all time. It was also the second board game of all time after Monopoly. There may be a relationship there. It is not the greatest board game of all time. I'm going to admit I have played a lot of it. It is extremely tedious. So don't take that into consideration. I'm not trying to make a tedious game, but it is an interesting game as a model. And so what is Risk? So, if you haven't played it, there's a map of the world and you have armies and you try to take your armies, which is your sources of strength, and go take more territory, right? And it's just basically a game of fighting to conquer a map, which is effectively what marketing is, and there's this really good book also by Al Ries and Jack Trout who wrote Positioning that I also really like. I mean, I like a lot of their books, obviously, but Marketing Warfare. And I believe marketing is warfare, if you like that analogy, because we do all the languages from that, like campaigns. That's a marketing term. Like you have to think about it as how you're acquiring territory, meaning market penetration. And that's really where this comes from. So the way I sell this idea, and this, by the way, when you're playing the game of marketing risk in your company, you have to sell the idea like it's going to be somewhat fun as well. So I kind of have this kind of sales pitch to the other people you're going to involve. If you believe marketing is warfare, a lot of CEOs they're pugilistic. They want to feel like they're winning and fighting, so that appeals to them. Or you like board games for people who are not that into war. It's kind of fun. Or you like smell of permanent marketers in the morning just to make them feel like it's going to be a light exercise. I kind of use this pitch, and this has worked. Everyone gets really excited about this. So it's a little tip. I try to sell the idea like this is a game. It's not really a game. It's really about you getting your act together, the rest of the organization. But you need to get people to show up. So, the whole point of this is you're running a half-day session with everyone in the company who has an impact on partnerships. And the reason why you want to do this, the goal is to get buy-in from the organization, get them all aligned to a strategy. And more importantly for you in the long term is to set an agreement with the rest of them so they don't forget, what you all decided to do with partnerships. Because, 6 months from now, they're going to stop delivering unless you have something to point to. Remember this, what we all agreed to. This is what we're working on, reminding them why. This was really important. I found that without some kind of corporate strategy document for partnerships, people tend to forget, and you start reducing partnerships back down to this inbound, ad hoc, random, chaotic mess that a lot of us have inherited. This is the point. So who do you invite? Yes, you want to invite people and appeal to their ego. Something about the customers, something about the market. I want you here because you have insight. But also, you should be thinking, who do I also need to get buy-in, future and down the road for my own job? So, anyone who's really customer facing or market facing is worth bringing in. CEO, marketing, sales, product, and support are the common ones. If you have professional services, I'd bring them in. You may bring engineering if you find engineering has a lot of power in your organization, because they might decide how the product goes more than the product team. Whomever, who you think might have some idea of the customers or might impact partnerships, invite them. It's generally best to invite the head of those departments, and within the product team, if you have a particular product manager who's specifically on partnerships, like the platform team, you might want to bring them as well. Okay, so what do you need to do to kick this thing off? It's pretty lightweight from a prep point of view, from your audience's point of view. I'll tell you, you should do a lot of prep work beforehand, which is the previous masterclass I did about how to do the market research, because you have to assume that most people in the company have no idea who their customers are, which is sadly true. So if you've done the market research from the previous masterclass, you should have reported that and hope they've read it, which maybe they have, maybe they haven't. But either way, it doesn't matter. Most people all have, even though you assume they know nothing, because it's a good assumption, most people intrinsically, if they've been working with customers for a long time, they might have formalized their understanding of the customer, but they kind of intuitively understand it. So you don't really need them to do any prep beyond reading their materials. So what do you need to bring? All you need is really index cards, markers, Post-it notes. It's important to have colorful Post-it notes, at least pink and green and yellow are really important, because pink is bad and green is good and yellow is neutral. That is really important. You need a large table. I have never successfully done this remotely. I'm sure you can try. It's different when you're doing it remotely, because you're not really getting the advantage of having the table and using people's spatial reasoning and feeling it out and getting everyone in a room together, which is really an important part of this. It's not just about the ideas, it's about human agreement, but I suppose it's possible. It's also good if you bring people together is to give them water and snacks so they don't leave the room, because you want to spend 2 hours focused on this, preferably without a break, because it's going to be pretty intense and you want to get it all done. If people break, they're going to get distracted and they're going to lose buy-in. So keep it focused by bringing them all together. And I do send them this. I have this doc. You can use it. You can clone it. Sunir.org/risk. For those who've seen it before, those who haven't, you can download it here, which is just a prep doc, basically summarizing this from their point of view, what to expect. So they're coming in with some idea what's going to happen, but it's not like they don't have to do any work, right? And besides reading your previous research. Things you should, though, have sent them before, like I said, assume nothing. They assume they know nothing. You should know your main customers, how they describe themselves, where are the likely markets, your competitors, what they're doing, what are the major channels in each market. Some of this you might have shared. I'll tell you, there's a secret at the end of this presentation about why you need to do this work beforehand. This is you doing the work rather than the rest of them. It is important that if you're the partnership leader, you know the answers to these questions as much as you can going into this exercise, even if everyone else doesn't. There's a super secret reason why. I'll get to that at the last minute. Okay, so what's the outline? Keep it to 2 hours. Don't go beyond 2 hours, because people will get frazzled after 2 hours. It's a very simple set of exercises. It just goes through phases. It's pretty natural. First, you brainstorm the potential markets and opportunities. markets or types of partners, whatever you want to call them. And then you group them together, and then you assign strengths and weaknesses, like what your strengths are as a company, the weaknesses, opportunities and threats, SWOT analysis on the map. Then you decide as a company based on the strengths and weaknesses across the map, what your strategy is, decide your focus of your target, and then plan your campaigns, right? And so there's a rough time estimates about how much to spend, roughly 20 minutes per section. The targeting actually doesn't take very long because it's pretty obvious after strategy. So I just put 10 minutes in. Sometimes people argue, sometimes they all agree. But the last section is actually where it's really your time to shine. And that takes longer because that's actually the decision-making process. So that might take 30 minutes. So I actually find brainstorming to be pretty much done after 20 minutes if people are really into it. It only takes 30 minutes if there's chit chat and small talk at the beginning. So what do I mean by brainstorming? How does it work? So the way it works is you have these index cards. You basically give everyone a stack of index cards, like these white cards and markers. And then you get people to, you just ask the question, who can we market? Who can we partner with? Or another way is, who is a customer looking for information in their ecosystem? Like who do they rely on? What kind of companies, what kind of people can we work with, right? And just start brainstorming. So I thought, to do this, to show you how this works, it's really straightforward. We just do it. So I thought, let's just run it ourselves, and then I'll show you what to do with it. So if everyone can turn off their mics, let's do like 3 minutes, 5 minutes of brainstorming to show you how it works. So here's the question. Let's do it for the Cloud Software Association. We're all the partners. We're looking for more members. They're all partnership people. Just shout it out. And the key is when you're writing on the cards, you instruct people. You write on the card and then you shout it out. You're not writing on cards, so just shout it out. But it's important to verbalize it because when you say it out loud, it actually inspires someone else to write something on the card. So for instance, you can go on LinkedIn. I'll just start LinkedIn. And we can search, we can go talk to other associations like MSP Alliance. And
probably, well, it's not event time, but attending event where there's gonna be potential partner cloud company.
Yeah, and then you can,
and then the events, virtual.
Say maybe SaaStr and Dreamforce and Inbound. What do you say, Evan?
Yeah, like even virtual, but like just attending virtual, events and seminars and things like that.
Sure. We can scan integration directories for a company. Like Zapier and HubSpot, Salesforce App Exchange. Come on, throw some ideas out there. Get your brains engaged because you're going to be doing this yourself. Everyone throw out one idea. Okay, John, I'm going to pick on you.
Microsoft is another one.
There you go, Microsoft. Liz, how about you?
Maybe social channels.
All right. So as it goes, what we'll find is that by shouting it out, there's like, you start saying things that are abstract, and then people will start listing. Like then people go up specific and start listing. And this is why it's important to say it out loud. And you put on these little cards. And everyone's just doing it in front of them. And you'll find, once people will get into it, like they will just like, because they're hyper motivated because it's their company, to just like dump out as many ideas because it's been sitting inside them. The people in support know all the other products people will want them to be integrated with. They know people in marketing know the conferences people go to and the blogs and the webinars and all that kind of stuff. One of the key things as a facilitator is if you've done the market mapping exercise, you kind of have a broad overview of the market. So you just let people brainstorm, and then as things lull, you introduce a new category of stuff that people have missed. Like, what about conferences? Like blah, blah, blah. And then people start going like this. This is why you have to do your prep work going into it, because you're there to not have the answers, but to prompt the answers out of people, right? You already know you've already done the work, right? They haven't. So you're trying to get them to come along with you. And so as you're like an orchestra conductor, you're like, as this section is quieting down, you light up, as the strings are quieting down, go over the brass section. So if they're done with product software integrations, then maybe you go over to conferences. Then maybe when that quiets down, you go to trade associations. And when that quiets down, maybe you go down to podcasts, whatever. People do it naturally, but if they don't, make sure you fill in the gaps. Try to do as complete brainstorming as you can. This is why the market mapping is so important, that you have the answers. But 20 minutes is usually what it takes. And people are like, we'll be surprised how much opportunity there is. This is actually one of the most surprising things, is you see everything that comes out, right? There are so many interesting things that people know, and people are like, oh, wow, we have a lot in front of us. But then finally they feel good that they've actually enumerated it all. So after you're done that, this is where the fun part comes in for everybody else. So they brain dumped, they've seen everything. It's like, wow, everything is here. And you'd be surprised how much fun this is for everybody. Now you start grouping things together. Now, the thing about marketing Risk, if you play the board game Risk, it's set up as a map of the world, right? And the world has continents, and each continent has countries. Each index card is effectively a country, and they group together into continents naturally. And the continents are then also like relate to each other, because one market will lead to another. So if you are looking at, say, social media groups, so a LinkedIn group may lead you to a Facebook group, or a LinkedIn group may lead you to a podcast that's related to the same person running the LinkedIn group, right? Or a Slack community may lead you to the podcast. And then, the podcast may lead you to the software companies running it, who might do an integration, and that integration may lead you to an app directory. They're kind of related to each other. You'll find as you lay it out on the table, this is why it's important, you can build a map, right? And this map, these are the contents. I arranged them and grouped them together because it's two other sides, so many cards. And this is obviously for a client. The contents, then you start grouping together, gives you, as a partnership person, a program target. Because you can't actually run a partnership program against like individual companies efficiently. You have to run them against the same set. So you want to run them, you want to, you could, if you, this is the problem with prioritization. If you cannot prioritize a single company as a partner, unless they're a giant strategic company, because they may fail on you. You want to run them against like a set of companies that are similar. This is what allows you to make that argument convincingly to the rest of the company, is by grouping them into areas and continents. And it's like, okay, these are the e-commerce ones. And within e-commerce, there are the shopping carts, and then there are the widgets, right? And then there's the drop shippers, like whatever. You can start breaking down the map into categories. That allows you to talk as a company. Well, we're going to focus on e-commerce. First, we need to do the shopping carts, and then we need to go to the drop shipping companies, right? Because that conversation becomes easier for you. Once you've laid out the map of the market. So the grouping strategy is like you just you get everyone to jump in. Again, you don't want to do the work. You want to like nudge them along as a facilitator. They will do it for you. They'll start grouping things together for you into related things. And then you start showing them that these things relate to each other. Well, this is kind of like, creative web agencies are really similar to graphic design agencies. And web developers, and web developers are like software engineers, and software engineers are like electrical engineers, or whatever it is. You build the map so they're related to each other, and then you end up building. I fuzzed it out because I don't want to show you the client, but this is you will find this is each one of these groups is a like a country set, or like a small continent, and each column is actually a larger grouping, right? And then each of these continents here are related to each other. So if you see there's little bridges, between as countries relate to each other. We actually laid it out. And as it turned out for this client in particular, this organization in order made sense. I'll show you the layout later. Actually, I'll show you right now. Why not? This actually made sense for them. Like I actually drew it out on the report out for them of like along the life cycle of the customer. Each partner set matched a different part of the customer journey. And that actually came out of laying it on the table. They had never noticed that before. about the market, right? And it allowed us to focus strategically as the company where it mattered, because the customers only cared about acquisition and delivery. They didn't care about anything in the middle. So we just focused on the ends, right? So then it made it really easy to throw out every other partnership they were talking about that was not related to the front and the back, right? And this was really powerful, but this only came out because everyone on the table got together and got to use their own hands and manipulated all the market with their own hand, spatially with their own hands, and they all get to talk together, right? And you're just sitting there as a partnership person, with a big smile on your face, because they are coming to alignment on their own, effectively, to what you're going to be focusing on, right? And you don't have to convince them; they're convincing themselves, right? That's the whole point of facilitation. Does that make sense? All right. It's magical, like this is the moment where that you start seeing the strategy. Like people start talking about, oh, what if we focused only here? These kind of questions start coming out. They start moving towards the possibilities for the company. Like if you think about the positioning story, your company fits into this map of the market somewhere, right? Like you're strong here and weak there, and you have use cases that align here, and you don't have anything to do with here, right? You start seeing where you fit in, right? And you can see where you could possibly go, and where your competitors are strong or weak. And this is where you get to the next phase. So I don't know if you noticed, there were little stickers on the groups, red and green. This is why the red and green post-it notes. I didn't have red and green post-it notes. We use the little tabs for this client, but red and green post-it notes are good because you can write on them. Strengths and weaknesses. So where you feel the product or your market strategy or your assets or your relationships are strong, green. Where you feel you're weak, or the competitors are particularly strong and you're weak, red. Where you feel like there's an interesting idea, you can put a different color like blue. I use yellow for the names of the continents. That's why yellow is important. If you have blue post notes, sometimes you put interesting ideas like thoughts, so you're not losing them. What if we did have a mobile app, then we can do these things or whatever it is, right? People can start making notes on the map, right? And then laying them down. For the CEO and the head of product and the head of marketing, this is like, they're going to be in their own little universe here, just loving this, because they're starting to plan what the future of the company is from a technical strategy point of view, right? And then it becomes pretty obvious what the partnership team is going to be doing, right? Is like making it happen for them, lining up the relationships, right? Then that's what I mean. Like you want to get beyond just doing revenue, right? Revenue is important. Like that's how you pay for everything. But this gives you a place at the table, as you should be, creating the opportunity for the company to exist, right? This is the magic moment, right? So after that, like I said, so you do your strengths and weaknesses. Then the strategy conversation is just going to happen, right? Because all the people who care about the future of the company are just going to go, they're going to talk and talk and talk. Make sure you're recording as much as you can. Either have a designated note taker or take notes yourself. Do whatever you can to record these ideas, because this is going to be the central part of your report out, and also for every future meeting you have with your boss, and the CEO or whatever. This strategy is going to inform what your focuses and priorities are going forward. It becomes pretty straightforward after this where to target, like where to focus your energy of all the potential things you can do. I will tell you one little secret that I always tell people playing this game. In the board game Risk, you are never supposed to try to invade Asia. Never once, because it is too big and it is attacked by all sides. In marketing Risk, it is the opposite. Always invade Asia. It is the biggest market with the most opportunities, and it takes you to the most other markets. It is the exact opposite, because the markets have money, whereas in game Risk, you just have death. So it is quite the different opportunity. Always take Asia. Always take the biggest market that is attached to the most adjacent markets, because that's where the most opportunity is. And if you say that, I use that line, everyone pretty much, when you look at the map, they immediately see where it is. It's like, this is where all the activity is. Like I said, for this client, they realized that only the front and the back of this alignment mattered to customers. So it was like here and here, that's it. Everything else in the middle, just drop it. It's no longer relevant. It became really easy to focus on what to do. And then now, after the rest of the company has basically walked themselves into a partnership strategy for you, like they've basically done a lot of the work. This is now the last phase is the planning. Like, what is the actual campaign plan? And this is where you actually show that you know what you're doing as a partnership professional, right? The last 30 minutes is what tactically and programmatically are you going to do to attack that target, right? So they don't know anything about partnership campaigns necessarily, but you can start brainstorming. Well, to reach this, if it was software integrations, okay, well, we should start with focusing on, say the e-commerce. Let's go back to e-commerce. Focusing on the big 3 shopping carts. We need to do a platform integration with them. I also need to go to their conferences, and we need to do a co-marketing campaign. Those are 3. That's a programmatic approach to the shopping carts. We should also, in the e-commerce world, think about going to, I don't know, let's say drop shippers. I should start reaching out to them, building relationships, try doing co-marketing at the conferences, right? These are kind of ideas you might be presenting. The point here is to think about tactically, what are you going to do to make headway in those markets? I mean, there's a million ways to do that. That's not for the scope of this talk, but this is the point of this. This is the part of the exercise where it's really about you showing your professional chops about what you can and cannot do and getting buy-in. So people have like some faith that now we know what we should be doing, that you are going to do it, and everyone's there and they can hear it and they understand what's happening. And when you do the report out and go back to them 3 weeks later, remember when we're all together in a meeting and I said that I was going to do a conference plan, a strategy? Well, that's why I need the event budget. Thank you. Oh yeah, that's right. Right. So this is why you need to have it here. I will guarantee you at this point, everyone's minds are shutting down now at this point, because this part they don't have anything to say about partnership strategy or marketing tactics. They'll have something to chime in here and there, but they're really just digesting what just happened, right? And it's you just then presenting that you're on top of it now. You're just building confidence. That's fine. This is the end of the 2-hour meeting, and then that's why you break here. Like then they're all tired, but they feel really good. Like they felt like they got something out of this, and you know what you're doing, right? And from on the human level, like that's really what it's about. It's about building confidence, right? That's how you get buy-in under 3 hours, is they feel like you know what you're doing, right? And you do know what you're doing, right? They've seen it all, right? And they all agree. That's the whole point of this exercise. Otherwise, you can just send them reports and say OKRs and stuff. But this is like a human exercise for the emotions. Does that make sense? All right.
Yeah, Sunir, what if you are going into it with that sales mindset? What if you know that everybody's thinking from the same angle? Is like, okay, this is part of sales, this is a sales function. So there's that like preconceived kind of, you're already starting from like 5 steps back, and you're really trying to get alignment across the whole spectrum. And you kind of, as you're going through it, you kind of see those, like, when people are glazing over, kind of like, oh, okay, like let's just get through it so we can talk about the sales. Like how do you approach that to kind of almost get them out of their zone, like their preconceived zone or thought?
Well, here's the thing. So that's exactly right. So once you have a map of the territory, right? So you show, if you want to sell, let's say you're selling through solution partners. Again, let's go back to e-commerce. You're selling through Shopify experts and Magento solution providers, okay? So we need them to bring you in through a partnership sales strategy to get more revenue. You also might realize that customers in your direct sales team, because you have head of sales there, they say, well, we need all these integrations too, in order to make the sales, right? So then you can tie integrations back to revenue. It's like, well, we need to also close the integrations and get these things done, right? So the sales will go forward. And when you talk to the SPs, if you've done your homework, well, you might, the time when you introduce evidence or empirical, is, you should always do it in reaction. You shouldn't be teaching people, like preaching at them as they are coming up with points where they don't uncertainty. Then you introduce what you know. Oh, when I was talking to solution partners, what I discovered is, they're not really interested in us per se. What they're interested in is getting in front of the Magento on the directory. And to do that, they need to bring in larger clients. So maybe, in success team, is there an opportunity for us to take some of the clients who are too big or we can't serve and put them back into the solution partner channel, things like that. You can start aligning the company towards what it actually takes to sell through the channel, is to we need you to start referring clients out to the partners, right? Rather than looking at them as only a revenue channel, but they can see it. Also, if you're going after solution partners, right? right? You may see like the only way to get to them is to have a strong event presence at a Magento Imagine or a Shopify Unite, right? So you can ask the events team, like, we need to run a campaign here for these e-commerce agencies, both on a blog, on a digital level, but also in person, we need to run cocktail parties, right? Also, you might say, well, there's a bunch of other software companies going after them. Can we do co-marketing with them? So maybe if you have, we need like the most, like they're all using, what are they all using in e-commerce land? I don't even know anymore. Agency analytics, actually, there you go. It's a good one they might be using. If they're all using that, then we should be talking to Liz, and figuring out how we can get the alignment between our products up and running. So, I mean, when you have the map laid out, it becomes easier to understand where the whole company can align around making this thing work, right? Rather than what people are thinking about partnerships as a revenue thing, is like it's a black box to them. They have no idea who these other companies are. They're not the customer. So they can't orient their mind around what a service company might need, versus the end customer in order to get to the customer. Once they see it all there, you can actually show people, well, to talk to them, they're between us and the customer. So here's where they sit and here's where we sit physically. Like you can actually literally move things around on the table and show them, right? And then tell the story of what it would take for your product to go into their thing, right? So like a typical e-commerce agency is working with a whole bunch of other products, right, to build a solution. So then maybe we have to go talk to those other products to do a whole product solution campaign, stuff like that. It's a long answer, but it's really important to understand the purpose of this map is it becomes the tool to allow the company to visualize what your day looks like and who you're working with so that they can align their strategies to support the partner sale. That makes sense. Right. So before I get into the extras, let's stop here. Questions would be good, if anyone has any, would be a good time for that.
I have a question kind of building off on what Evan said. So, definitely I think when you're in marketing too, you're always trying to show the company what revenue and what impact you're trying to make. When it comes to partnerships, it can be very difficult to sort of display a tangible impact in terms of like revenue and KPIs to the organization to be able to show like what the value of, say, partnership or even somebody in that role can be. So just wondering, what are your recommendations in really just setting the expectations with the company, and then sort of even just aligning in your strategy? You mentioned OKRs, realistic metrics and KPIs to say, hey, here we're going to spend this amount of money, or we're investing this amount into a partnership initiative or this particular partner. How do we build our own expectations? What are we expecting from them? What is a reasonable amount of result that on our side, we can expect from them, and likewise what they would be looking for? And I think that's obviously goes back into strategy, but just wanting to see what your recommendations are there in sort of building that expectation with the company on what can be expected and what we are looking for in terms of like why it matters and what, I don't want to say revenue, but really what do we get out of it?
Yeah, so I have a different slide from a different presentation we're talking about this, but if you see this the top, this is the pretty standard funnel for SaaS. You come in from acquisition, you close them, and then usually it's referrals, like they upsell, resell, and referral and recommendation, right? And they have a viral loop. This is the standard SaaS funnel. So if you look at the customer lifecycle and journey, partners are not about anything except moving a customer along this journey. Because the reason why you need partnerships is that your customers demand it. Like the customers who are buying because of partners or because they don't care about you. They live in their own little world, and then you need to fit into what they're saying. That's the purpose of this exercise, is to make that vibrantly clear to everyone in the company who may not get it. Right? Direct sales, it's like they're directly selling. There's no in between them. They can't see it. They hear about it. They don't feel it every day because they don't talk to the other companies. A customer's like, well, are you connected with Salesforce? Are you do Facebook ads? Those are partners, right? So they hear them. They don't know what to do about them. So first laying it all out and showing the whole company, this is what the customer's seeing and feeling. This is the customer's perspective, right? In order to make the sale, we're gonna have to contend with this because they're not going to buy anything unless we align with the rest of the market. But where do the metrics come in? Well, the customer metrics, all partner metrics drive to an underlying customer metric, right? Almost always it's almost always demand, like, more customers or more revenue, because most people care about demand. But then you can align, well, the partners who impact our, acquisition and conversion, are these companies, right? And if we want to have partner metrics, they're all about the funnel of your partner activities to the underlying customer. So if it's demand generated, like suppose you have a referral program, right? Then like through media, whatever, then you have a whole bunch of metrics around your activities, but the underlying results is going to be new customers, right? So you want to line up the new customer metric to all the partner activities. So how many blogs have we identified, targeted, how many guest blog posts, how many links do we have, how many visits, the conversion rates on those landing pages, that kind of thing. Those metrics around the partner program, but they line to the underlying metric, more customers, right? Same thing with PQL, like MQLs, PQLs are the same. You just wanted, the sales team wants more qualified leads from your solution partner channel, like service channel. Yeah, it's the same thing as an MQL, right? But then you have like specifically partner programs. So how many service partners do we have? How many times we contacted them? How many customers have they handed off? How happy are they? What's the close rate? All that stuff. It's just you measuring your partner activities, but there's an underlying metric. And when everyone's in the room together across the company, if you use the same customer metrics they're using for the direct channel, right, and say, well, here's where the partner stuff works, it just lines down into your customer metric, but there's a bunch of partner activities. It's easy for them to wrap their head around. Okay, you're basically handing me an MQL. Okay, I get it, but it's from the partners, and you have a bunch of metrics from partnerships to give me what's effectively an MQL. Does that make sense? And that is a really good question to first know the answer to before you come into this meeting. What do the people expect from you? Is it going to be revenue? That's fine. If it's revenue, that's revenue. Then it helps you focus where on the map you're going to go for. But then to explain to them, okay, if we're going after these people, we want revenue, what are the things we need to do with these people tactically in order to get that strategic metric to change? And then they all understand what you're doing during the day to deliver the one thing they care about, apples to apples, which is more MRR or more sales. But then there's a bunch of partner activities they're seeing you do, and then you can talk about with them, okay, well, we need to do more, we need to onboard, we need to do more partner trainings. Okay, that's a metric you can measure. It's not directly related to the revenue, but they can see how it lines up. All right, well, speaking of reporting out, so, first, any other questions actually before I get into this section?
Sunir, one question around strategy setting. So do you have ideas for how to deal with what I call like strategic thrash, where you'll set a strategy and your leadership team, or maybe the product team or whichever team, will start to chase like a tactical shiny thing that reallocates resources from what you said you needed?
Well, you just teed me up, Eugene, because that's exactly what I'm about to talk about. So the report out is absolutely goddamn critical, because no one will remember anything. Their minds will be scrambled after this meeting. They'll have 100,000 ideas. They're going to come up with you afterwards with new thoughts and whatever. The point of this was to get everyone literally on the same table, like see everything laid out and agree to it, right? And this becomes like the baseline, the foundation from which all future conversations will go. This is effectively the contract. And you'll see how persnickety I am about this. I do it in a very nice way, maybe, but I am slowly manipulating everybody around me to agree what I'm doing, including you guys, I guess. You're all buying Appline tomorrow, right? That's how that works. The key is to use this in the future as, remember that thing we did? Yeah, remember the report? This is what we're doing. This is where it fits in. I like your idea, or whatever new idea. That's a really good idea. Remember the map? Let's go, like, it fits in right here on that map we laid out, right? And you remember where it lines up to the goals. Maybe it's a good idea. Maybe it's a better idea than what you had at the time. That's fine. But at least you could have the common conversation you go back to. It's like, well, our goal was new revenue. Like we just care about revenue right now. That's a really cool partnership idea. It fits more on fulfillment, like after the sale. I don't know if we should be focusing on it right now, but I could add it to the partnership strategy doc. It's a living doc. You can add to it. I can put it down here. The CEO may override you because shiny object syndrome. They talk to some CEO and like I have it in here. They talk to Toby at Shopify, and then suddenly they have to do it. That may be fine, but at least you've agreed that it's off the map. You're off-roading, right? So then how accountable are you going to be to that decision if they know that we had this plan and you made I would say, if you want me to do something different, that's your choice. I'll do what you want. This was the plan. This is something different. So I can pause this and go over here, but these goals are gonna change. But you have this, right? And this is really key. So look, in the report out, this is the most fancy version of this. This is you can do it. You can write it. You can just do it in text. You can take a picture. I drew this out because in this particular company, I was consulting, and I wanted to make sure that we can put something literally on a wall that everyone can look at every day and remember what we just talked about, because I wasn't working there all along. So I drew it out. But it's good to record what happened here. And the more you can make it, it takes time, but the more you could crystallize it and make it look official, the more you can use it as the foundation for future conversations to get people back on track. So that's why, I would do something like this and lay it out. And, I put the strengths and weaknesses here as well, just a reminder why we're not doing something, why we're doing something else. It's like, we're really weak here. Do you remember that? We can't, we're really weak in this area. That's where we're focusing over here. That kind of stuff. I would just write down. And then, speaking of reminding people and manipulating them, you can take my micromanagement advice or not. Boilerplate. I definitely write them thank you, a nice positive message, and then I write down everyone's name who showed up to remind them they were there. So they can't say, I don't remember. You were there, remember? You were an attendee. Thank you. And then executive summary, restating what the CEO or whoever is your boss is, their demands of you going into this, and anyone else who came up with demands of you, you write in the executive summary. So everyone remembers, and you reflect back. I heard you. This is what you need from me. You write it in here, right? So this becomes 6 months. You're like, what the hell are you doing, Eugene? It's like, well, sales said they just want more MQLs. That's the summary, right? And why, and you restate those objectives again in the objectives in bullet form, with numbers, right? Set it twice, because this is kind of nailed it in there. And then the action items are also really important, because you're going to demand from, okay, if I have to deliver MQLs to you, then marketing, you agreed that you're going to give me access to the blog for a partner thing, everything. And then you're going to give me the trade show budget, right? These are action items that came out of this. You write them in here. This is basically becomes your contract with the rest of the company, in a nice positive way, as I like to say. And then again, a little micromanagement. These are tricks I've learned from writing these reports. Is I explicitly call out in the description. You can write out how you do business cases and plans however you want, but I explicitly in color, because this is a colorful exercise. In color, name the partner categories that we talked about on the map, and highlight them in blue. It's remember that in the map we talked about? That was that. It's right here. I put it literally right there. That's why we're doing this program. Remember that? Because they'll forget, right? Because they can go back to the map, right? It's oh, remember that? This is why we're doing these partners, right? And then any positives and negatives in green and red. So no one's going to be surprised 2 months from now you hit mud because of this problem. It's then you go back to engineering. Remember, this is a corporate strategy we all agreed on. We're going to do Shopify. I need the billing API, right? I need you to do this, right? And then it becomes easy for them to remember, because that's my strategy to get people to remember.
Yeah, I mean, something like this, it'd be kind of useful to do, or a variation of it every year, almost you could even add it on to your kind of annual planning or whatever, and just every year kind of reiterate what's happening, right?
Yeah, I've never done it again, because the mapping is and people don't like doing this twice. But I've used the map every quarter, and then I just keep building on it personally after that. This part here, the strategy part, you can do always continuously. The mapping, I would continue. If you remember the marketing mapping exercise, I said it never stops. You just keep going around and around and adding to it. You can keep adding to this map as well for other people as well, because this is the partnership function. So, but you should definitely be doing the strategy and buy-in thing every quarter or every 6 months, because get people to agree what we're working. Because once you achieve one partnership, you're going to go into the next one, right? The next one, and the next one, and the next one. You got to remind people this is a campaign. We're trying to win the territory of the market. So the first part, like you do Shopify, right? Then you might, like I said, maybe then you want to do the drop shippers. So we're doing Shopify, remember, because then we're going to drop shippers. Remember that. So now we're on to the drop shippers, and then you restate you restate your program priorities based on the map that you guys all agreed on earlier. So I definitely agree. You're right, Evan. You do it like pretty much every time.
And I mean, if you're meeting with the department heads, whatever it is, once a month or every 2 weeks or whatever it is, it's something to kind of use as a referral, right? It's like, hey, I know we're doing this campaign or whatever it is that you're working on for that quarter or that month, but you're kind of bringing it back to this to say, well, it does fit into this. So that they get used to seeing this over and over again. I just haven't seen one of these. You've seen so many like in sales and marketing and like just like general leadership styles and management. There's a million of these types of things, but like for partnership specific, I haven't seen one. And I think, obviously you'd have to kind of reapply it and rejig it for your own thing, but like just having a template and the kind of framework of how to approach it and then just like keep doing it. Like, I think if you can, nail at least like 75% of what you're trying to achieve with the first one, you're really kind of setting yourself up to have a very meaningful conversation for every conversation afterwards, right? Because you've got something to fall back on.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you could put this literally on the wall behind you, I mean, if we still have offices anymore, I assume we'll get back there. You can put this on the wall or bring it up like in the conversation, the map itself, because it gives you something to talk about. Because as partnership people, we naturally understand the shape of the market because that's what we deal with all day long, right? But you'll be surprised. Sales never thinks about it. Like they're just like plowing away at customers, right? They don't think about this wider thing, right? So having this, I mean, we used to have something like this at FreshBooks, like behind my desk. Like it was on Post-it notes. Like these are the groups of people we're after, and we're focusing here today because I can't deal with the rest of it. So if you have a partner, put on a piece of Post-it note and shove it on the wall, and that's fine. I'll put it there. I'll get to it when we get there, right? But then everyone can see if they build in the idea of a map in their head that you're living in mapland. Then you have a common. You can literally every meeting, every conversation, you can just keep building onto it. We have a couple minutes left. I have one secret to leave behind with you if you haven't got it yet. There is a key secret in group facilitation that I didn't realize when I was a young pup, and I had to learn from the master. Never walk into a group facilitation session unless you already know the answer you're going to get from all the people in there. You should know that before you go in. The point of the facilitation is not to learn something new, because then you've obviously failed as a facilitator. You should have already talked to everybody and know where they're going and be prepared for it. So remember that 30 minutes where it's your time to shine? You already have the answers for what they're expecting from you. Maybe there's 20% surprises of new ideas or interesting new ideas. Great. But basically you should have the report almost done before you walk in.
So
at least in your head.
You suggest like getting almost like running through a quick version of this individually before getting everybody on the table, or not taking away from like, I don't know, the surprise, or I guess
if you've done the market map, if you've done the mapping exercise I did before, you already know what the market looks like. Basically, you may not have all of it, but you have most of it. Like, and you talk to all the department heads individually. I'm really asking, what do you expect? What do you expect from me? What opportunities have you seen? What are the problems you've seen with partnerships? Get their feeling of what partnerships is. Like, so basically do a 360 review of what the partnership function at the company as it stands. Who are your current partners? Who are the best partners, worst partners? What is the most frustrating thing? What are you hoping I do? All that stuff. So then when you come into the meeting, group facilitation here, and they're all brainstorming, you already know, like, oh, engineering already hates partnerships. So this is going to be a wild exercise. But then the point is to get buy-in to the purpose of doing the platform, because we need to get to this, like, all the opportunities on the other side of the integration universe, right? And so the engineering team's like, oh, this is why the platform is exciting. Because remember the adage, you want to build a ship, don't ask people to cut wood, and saw it and glue it together. Make them yearn for the endless wonder of the sea, and then they'll build a ship for you, right? Like, that's the point of the map, is no one could see it before. I don't know.
Yeah, no, there's huge value in this. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Sunir, for doing this. I think we'll make this available on YouTube as well. So if you wanted a refresher before you start kind of organizing your own 3 hours, I think it'd probably be a good idea. But the bones and the skeleton of what you're trying to create is there. It will take a little bit of work to kind of modify for your own thing. But if you have any questions, Sunir is on Slack. So shoot him a message. I'm sure he'd love to hear everything to do with this or AppBind or whatever ideas you have. So get in there and ask questions. But yeah, thanks for joining me, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.